Volkswagen is now one of the most recognizable car companies in the world, but its origins are inseparable from one of history's most destructive regimes, Nazi Germany. The name Volkswagen means people's car. In the 1930s, Adolf Hitler wanted a small, affordable car that could symbolize his promise of modern life for ordinary Germans. It was not just transportation, it was propaganda, a rolling image of national unity, industrial power, and loyalty to the Nazi state. In 1937, the company that would become Volkswagen was founded under the Nazi labor organization known as the German Labor Front. The project was tied to the regime's Strength Through Joy program, which promoted leisure and consumer dreams while crushing independent unions and political opposition. Germans were encouraged to save through a special scheme for the promised car. Many paid in. They never received it. The car was designed with the involvement of Ferdinand Porsche and his team. Hitler publicly championed it as proof that National Socialism could deliver progress. A massive factory town was planned near Fallersleben, later known as Wolfsburg. The plant was meant to produce the KDF wagon, the Strength Through Joy car, predecessor of the Beetle. But the dream sold to the public was overtaken by war. When World War II began in 1939, the Volkswagen factory shifted away from civilian production and into the Nazi war economy. The plant produced military vehicles and equipment, including versions of the Kübelwagen and Schwimmwagen used by German forces. Like many major German industrial sites, Volkswagen's wartime production depended heavily on coerced labor. This is the darkest core of Volkswagen's Nazi-era history. During the war, thousands of forced laborers were brought to Volkswagen facilities. They included civilians from occupied countries, prisoners of war, concentration camp prisoners, and others trapped by the Nazi system of exploitation. Many were taken from their homes, transported under harsh conditions, and forced to work for the German war machine. Conditions were often brutal. Workers faced hunger, exhaustion, punishment, dangerous factory labor, and severe limits on movement. Their lives were treated as expendable in the pursuit of production targets. The company benefited from a system that stripped human beings of rights and turned them into tools of war. Volkswagen was not alone. Many German companies became deeply entangled with Nazi policy, but that does not reduce responsibility. It shows how dictatorship, ideology, and business can fuse when profit, ambition, and state power override human dignity. The Volkswagen project also shows how propaganda can disguise coercion. The people's car promised mobility and modern comfort. But under Nazi rule, it was built inside a system that excluded, persecuted, enslaved, and murdered millions. The smiling image of a car for the masses existed beside forced labor camps, racial ideology, and a war of conquest. After Nazi Germany was defeated in 1945, the factory was damaged, the regime was gone, and the company's future was uncertain. Under British administration in the occupation zone, the plant was revived. In the post-war decades, the Volkswagen Beetle became a global symbol of affordability and charm. For many buyers, it represented simplicity, freedom, and even counterculture. But that later image cannot erase where the company began. Volkswagen's Nazi-era history raises difficult questions about corporate memory. What does a company owe to people harmed by its past? How should a brand remember a history that contradicts the friendly image it later built? And how do consumers, historians, and institutions hold corporations accountable when crimes were committed under a criminal state? Volkswagen has since acknowledged its wartime use of forced labor and supported historical research and remembrance. But acknowledgement does not undo suffering. It matters only if it is honest, specific, and public. The lesson is not that a modern car brand is the same as the regime that created it. History is more complicated than that. The lesson is that corporations are not neutral when they serve oppressive power. Factories, designs, supply chains, and business decisions can become instruments of violence inside a system built on racism, conquest, and forced labor. Volkswagen under Nazi Germany was not simply the story of a car. It was the story of a promise made to the public, a factory built for propaganda, and a company drawn into the machinery of war. Behind the polished myth of the people's car were people who had no freedom at all, remembering that history is not about sensationalism. It is about seeing the full picture. Progress without ethics can become exploitation. Innovation without human rights can serve brutality. And a brand's origin story, however famous, must be examined in the light of the people who paid the real price.